All right, what's good, everybody? We'll go ahead and get it started, man. Let's go ahead and get it started, man. How y'all doing, man? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Champ podcast, episode 128. For today's topic, we're going to be discussing one of the most profound ideas, or concepts, rather, that I've heard in such a long time that I definitely thought intrigued me enough to make a podcast on. But so that's what I'm going ahead and do today. So if you do have any comments, whether you're rewatching this or watching this live, that's going to be regarding to the today's topic or anything surrounding today's topic, I want you to go to leave in the comments. A few things I want to mention before I go ahead and get it started. Make sure you go ahead and follow me on TikTok, Life of a Champ podcast on TikTok, as well as make sure you go ahead and leave a like on my YouTube shorts as well as my YouTube clips. So to get it started, I'm going to give you the quote, and this is also going to be a tattoo idea of mine that I'm definitely going to go ahead and um, get in the future because I feel like it just resonates with me so much. But the quote is this by Alex Carell: "Man cannot remake himself without suffering." Let me just read this like over again. "Man cannot remake himself without suffering, for he is both the marble and the sculptor." And then there's this significant picture. I unfortunately cannot pull it up for you, but if you want to go ahead and pull it up for yourself, that is going to give you a very accurate illustration of what that means, the marble and the sculptor, like I said, today's topic. So, what that means to me is it means a lot of different things, if I'm being honest. I do, like I said, it resonates with me to an extent because I do believe that the male experience is building yourself up and shaping yourself not only through your own experiences, but through your own conscious action, which is more important than anything, I would say. But yeah, I would say this resonates with me a lot because I see that for myself when it comes to trying to visualize specifically what the finished product is for my own self, and this goes with anybody, right? When it comes to visualizing your end product for your own self, it's going to take a lot of thinking. It's not going to be something that can be built overnight, and it's not something that can be thought about overnight. You all you can do is just put the time in, and that's exactly what being a sculptor is like, right? Putting the time in your piece of work and making sure that, um, and also realizing the fact that this is something that you create. No one else can create this for you. And yeah, and then there's another element that I haven't yet mentioned, and obviously it is part of the quote, but it's more importantly without suffering. And an valid point that I want to make, and this is something that I've been reiterating on my last few podcasts that I think is still relevant to this topic, and it is the concept of understanding that life's worthy attributes and skills and abilities all pretty much boil down to being able to be in the position that is going to be deserving of that attribute. So, for example, if you're a person that's trying to achieve patience, maybe one of the things and one of the experiences that you will have is going to be an experience where you wait for the things that you truly want in this life. Things are not going to be just given to you. If you want to have the attributes of a person who's patient, then you're going to be completely fine and okay and understanding of you needed to wait for whatever you need to wait for in order to go ahead and have it in this life. And that's going to be kind of the example for all different attributes. If there's certain attributes, like so let's just say the attribute of a person who is very, very, very experienced. Maybe you go through a lot of experiences. Maybe you take a lot of losses. Maybe you get a lot of wins. Maybe there's going to be certain things that's going to be required and asked for to get to that end result. That is like, let's just say, for example, it's almost like in order to get to this to finish this quest, what do you need to do in the meantime that's going to help you get closer to your progress of the end result. What is that specifically going to be for any skill that you want or any element of skills that you do want? So I feel like that's going to be also very significant when it comes to the grand scheme of life as a man. Like I said, the quote says, "Man cannot remake himself without suffering." And it's also realizing that suffering is an absolute necessary thing in this life. In any capacity, you must struggle. This shouldn't be something that is particularly easy, right? An easy life is not one worth having, right? A hard, good life is probably going to be the route that's worth going down for sure. And yeah, like I said, I just find it very profound. And then, yeah, I want to reiterate some few other points as well. Give me one second. if you're in here, I appreciate you for stopping by. Like I said, if there's any specific thing regarding this topic that you think is similar that you think is worth also mentioning, make sure to leave it in the comments. But getting back to what I was saying, the work you put in yourself is also what you create of yourself, right? I feel like a lot of people they don't take the time. They don't take the time to go ahead and realize how much work is actually going to need to be put in order to get to their end result, right? I feel like a lot of people, and I said this on time and time again on different podcasts. I feel like people are not putting in enough work. Um, yeah, they're not doing enough thinking. They're not putting in enough work, and with that being said, they get the result that they go ahead and truly deserve, which is a result that is going to be less than desirable. But for whatever reason, like I said, if you're gonna do that, if you're not gonna put in the work, if you're gonna neglect the fact that you have to put in the work, if you know you need to put in the work and you're not doing it, the results are going to speak for themselves, and they're going to speak through your abilities. It's going to speak through your competence. It's going to speak through your body of work, whatever that is, in whatever capacity. But I feel like a lot of people need to really emphasize that and be extra cautious of this when it comes to your approach on life, because you are the end result of all your experiences and all the work that you put in yourself. And if you haven't put in enough work, well, you're going to look like an unfinished product. And everybody at the end of the day, obviously, I could say this is an unfinished product, but but I would also say there's a lot of people that have made a lot more progress that could literally be in the same circumstance, but have put in more work still, so they're farther ahead in the game, right? Having a sense of urgency, yes, I would agree with that for sure. Especially you being young right now. If you're watching this podcast, odds is that you're young, and with that being said, even though you do have a lot of time, having that sense of urgency is also going to be very, very helpful, right? It's going to make you waste less time on things that are going to not be worthy of, expending your time on. So, yeah, that is something that I feel like that needs to be taken into account as well. And I feel like a lot of people that kind of are in self development that are kind of just getting started, um, they kind of don't have that sense of urgency. This is something you're gonna need to build up for yourself. Um, but yeah, like I said, even though we do have a lot of time, there's still gonna be people. There's still gonna be people in the same position. Live the same amount of years in life that you have lived, and also been making a lot more progress than you. And yes, sir, Anthony, appreciate you stopping by, my guy. Like I said, if you guys have any comments regarding today's topic, like I said, the marble and the sculptor. Like I said, I wish I could pull up the picture, but unfortunately, I don't think I can pull it up immediately. Um, so with that being said, like if you want to go ahead and look at what that's going to look like for yourself, it's going to be a man. It's going to be a man who's building himself, literally, physically building himself. And I feel like with that being said, the suffering aspect also can be a correlation to a thing like the gym, right? If you, in order to have a body that's like a body worth having, you're going to need to put in the work that people are not going to be able to put in. Most people are not willing to put in. And of course, that's going to be the perfect example of a visual representation of progress. And I feel like not enough people emphasize that enough. And like I said, something I'm always going to emphasize, right? This is why the gym is so great. It is a visual representation of progress in more um in a physical fashion. I would say it's one of those things that's fantastic. And also, like I said, it gives you that visual representation of the actual being the marble and also being the sculptor as well, because you're literally sculpting. When you're working out, you're literally creating the body that you want to have, as opposed to not creating a body that's less than desirable. So, a few things I want to mention as well. And then, yeah, like I said, this is also something that was already kind of mentioned, but you are the finished product and also a work in progress at the same time. So all of the things, all the decisions you've made, and all the time that you spent on yourself is exactly what you are right now. But at the same time, you're still a work in progress. People need to emphasize the fact that they are a work in progress. I feel like a lot of people, especially in the self development community, if they're not exactly where they want to be, they're very, very hard on themselves, and it kind of goes hand in hand with having a sense of urgency. But at the same time, uh, you gotta understand that there's still gonna be there's still more time left in the game. Um, yeah, and with that being said, you are a work in progress at the end of the day. So if you don't let anybody fool you, right? And even people that have it have it look like a certain way on the outside. I feel like a lot of people are good at making things look easier, as opposed to actually, look like they're struggling. Even those people that are making life look easy are also going through and struggling on their own with their own certain things that they have going on in life. So, want to make that very, very clear. And like I said, it doesn't matter how successful anybody is, right? Everybody's gonna have their own things that they're going through. But yeah, like I said, if there's any specific topic regarding this topic that you think is relevant of mentioning, I want you to go and leave in the comments for sure. Give me 1 second, fellas. Another thing I want to say is this: you have the ability to change your future. With this analogy of the marble and the sculptor, the sculpture is not done yet. You are the sculptor. You still have time left, right? And with that being said, you have the ability to change what that future outcome looks like. You are the only person that has that. And with that being said, since you're creating your future, you must also recognize that your past or your past imperfections still create the finished product. All the struggles you go through, all the unnecessary things and all the problems, those things are going to add up to who you are in the grand scheme of life. Not They're not something that you can just get rid of. They're going to be essential to the experience. And I feel like a lot of people they try to separate those two different things. And I don't think that's particularly the best thing that you should do. So for example, understanding that good experiences and bad experiences still create an experience nonetheless is going to refer to kind of what I mentioned earlier, right? Where your past imperfections and your past still create the finished product. I feel like to just put aside those certain things and say I'm gonna completely detach myself from those when you were literally are your experiences. I feel like it's probably not something the best thing that you should do. But like I said, I feel like looking at them just as just experiences instead of just having placed a label on them and associating a behavior or maybe an emotion with a certain memory instead of just you know kind of realizing what it is, what it actually is. I feel like that's going to change your whole human experience for sure. If you ever felt down, just know that you can always change your life and you can always be the best you. It takes a lot of time. My friends, don't get discouraged. Yeah, KJ's right, man. And also, there were people out there who have it worse than you, which means it is a blessing that you have the opportunity to control your life. And yeah, KJ's exactly right. KJ with the grounded message for sure. Um, yeah, he's exactly right for sure. I really don't have too much to say. It's that kind of speaks for itself, but yeah, that he's just putting that into perspective for you guys. Um, yeah, life is hard, but what other life would you want? What other life should you want, right? And one thing I wanted to mention as well, like I said, I feel like this is really worth mentioning in this specific podcast. And it's something that I of course I recommend on multiple different podcasts, but this one particularly needs to be mentioned. This message needs to be mentioned for sure. Is you need to have a vision for yourself that you constantly remind yourself of when you go throughout this journey. Um, and the way that I would kind of correlate this to this specific podcast is almost like the blueprint. You need to be constantly editing and improving your blueprint, the blueprint that you want for life. Like I said, this would be the end the end of your sculpture, right? The end, yeah, the end, yeah, the end of the sculpture for sure. When you get past all the marble and actually start shaping the figure that you want. Um, I feel like having a good idea of what that looks like, so you have something to aim for, and also when you have an ideal to aim for, you have also a life to run away from. Like I said, that's gonna be another element that I think needs to be mentioned for sure. The second that you can create, even if you don't start by having that ideal, as long as you have the complete opposite of an ideal, you can start to create your ideal. Um, and I've done that in a few different elements of my life, for the better or for the worse. I would say, uh, kind of taking even negative experiences to create the positive experience that you want, or kind of shape what you kind of want that experience to look like, is definitely going to be a thing worth doing for sure. If you understand what I'm trying to say. But yeah, getting into the next thing, man. Yeah, I just want to kind of reiterate that a little bit more. you must constantly have a blueprint for you to go ahead and remind yourself throughout the journey, because there's going to be plenty of days that you're not going to feel 100% motivated, 100% disciplined, right? And in those moments, you're going to need to be reminded of the correct things. I feel like that's going to be a flaw that not a lot of people talk about for sure, that most people have, is in their moments of when they're not at their highest and they're at their lowest, right? What kind of things do they do? What are certain things that they've adopted and attached their identity that would signal them to get back into a line and almost to get back onto a certain type of frequency? Do you guys have any reminders? Let me ask you guys in the comments, right? Do you guys have any specific reminders of, let's just say you're in a rut, or you're in a situation that is less than ideal? Do you have any specific ways to get yourself back on track? For me, this is just going to be grounding in myself, I would say. Getting back to the basics of, weightlifting, playing basketball. Like I said, maybe if I'm already lifting, then it's just playing basketball, or maybe it's I don't know, taking the time out for yourself. That's the way that I would describe it. But I want to know your guys' take on this for sure. When building a sculpture, you need a plan. It takes time, and pieces of it had to be broken off in order for it to look beautiful in the end. It's the same with life. You're exactly right. Yeah, and even pieces of you that you never thought they were the finished product when they were actually not. Right? I feel like that's something that needs to be taken into account as well, when it comes to why that element of being the marble and the sculptor has so many different elements to it that add to it for sure. And like she said, maybe you didn't even want a piece to be broken off, and it still had to be broken off in order to have the most beautiful sculpture that you possibly can have. Uh, that kind of goes hand in hand with just sacrificing certain things, right? Maybe you're holding on to things that you maybe shouldn't hold on to, right? Maybe you're clinging to things that maybe had served you previously, but no longer serve you anymore, right? Yeah, I feel like that needs to be mentioned as well. Yeah, like I said, it's there's a lot of elements that kind of go into uh this specific concept of being the marble and the sculptor. That's why I really want to get a tattoo of this, because yeah, like I said, there's just so many elements, so many elements. It's deep on so many levels, man. You either know, you don't, and if you don't, then you don't, man. I'm gonna go ahead and say the quote one more time. The quote is, man cannot remake himself without suffering, for he is both the marble and the sculptor." Hey, fellas. Hey, some days you feel like the marble, some days you feel like the sculpture. The sculptor, rather. You feel me? I was thinking about this yesterday, and I have some words of wisdom for y'all. Life is like a mountain. Be your own shepherd. You need to lead the fools to the summit. Yeah, that's a good one right there. That's good right there. I feel you, my dog. I feel you for sure, for sure. Those are some words of wisdom for sure. Yeah, he's exactly right. He's exactly right, man. But yeah, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. I really really liked Jaden's point with the piece being broken off, though. That's a good right there. That's good. Hey, like I said, I want to know your guys' opinion as well. You think there's any other elements that I haven't yet mentioned that you think are reasonable lessons that can be learned from being the marble and the sculptor? If like she had mentioned, right? Maybe you don't want to break a piece off, but it needs to be broken off, right? That's obviously that's a good one. If you guys have any other ones, yeah, being the finished product and a work in progress still is yeah, that's a crazy concept right there. That is the way that you can look at everybody to an extent, right? Right now, through all your experiences and all the work that you put in on yourself, you are exactly the way you look right now, but you're also not what you're going to look like in the end as well. So yeah, I feel like that's interesting for sure. Yeah, one more element that I wanted to kind of reiterate a little bit more with the suffering aspect. Suffering is a necessary attribute of life's worthy skills, worthy attributes of having, worthy characteristics of adopting. There's going to be a lot of elements that suffering has to do with for sure. Sometimes life is like SpongeBob. It seems so chaotic and disorganized, and you're throwing everything everywhere. But don't give up like Squidward. It turns out to be a beautiful art. Exactly. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Turns out he made, yeah, that's exactly right. He's exactly right. That's pretty accurate for sure, for sure. Yeah, that's such an interesting element for sure. The thing I keep thinking about is when you look at most people, when you look at the average person, what type of sculpture do you think they're making right now? With the decisions that they've made, most people are not on self improvement for whatever reason, um, or rather for the many reasons that they might have. With that being said, if you're a person that's not working on yourself, what does your sculpture look like truly? Or is it just a piece of marble? Feel me? Some people are the marble, and they're nothing more than the marble. There's no the marble and the sculptor. It's just the marble. They're as useless as rock. That's it. That's uh, that's pretty accurate, I'd say, fellas. Unfortunately, like I said, I didn't make it this way. Nothing more than observation. But hey, you tell me if that's accurate or not. Don't be marble. Do not be the marble. Be the marble the least you possibly can. Also, I want to know your guys' take on this real quick because I think this might be significant when it comes to the visual aspect. When it comes to the visual aspect of the podcast, do you think if I added more records to this wall behind me, do you think that'd be a different element that you think would be really nice of seeing? Would it be more visually appealing if maybe if every album was close together? Because I have a few that I actually haven't even hung up yet. They need to be hung up, or some that I can move and put it on one wall. So if you guys would like that, make sure to go and let me know. Certain places can still be broken off even if we didn't want that to happen, but we can still change it in a way for it to look good. Hope that makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes sense for sure. That makes sense for sure. Yeah, you got to do with what you have, right? Come on now. Got to do your best with what you got. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. You ever see the people that realize that they're the sculptor and maybe break off a little too much, right? They give a little too much of themselves. And I feel like there's also an element of that when it comes to being the marble and the sculptor that yeah, that I would say is, how do I describe it? You need to be selfish almost. There's an element that you need to be almost selfish because you are the marble. In order to have the end result being what you want it to be, you might need to be at least a little selfish. I've had to cut some toxic people out of my life to make the sculpture beautiful. For example, my ex, as Drake would say, it's her loss. Yes, sir. You already know what time it is. Josh, you already know what time it is, my guy. Yes, sir. Hey, that's what you got to do, man. If that's what you got to do, man. Cutting people off. That's also gonna help you focus, log in for the one time to go ahead and create the sculpture that you need to go ahead and create. That's true. That is true. One thing I want to mention as well that I think is very very good, and people need to take advantage of a little bit more. I would say is if you're a person that's not that curious about certain things about life, I want you to go ahead and find things to be curious for or curious in. I feel like a lot of people they don't live life with having too many things that they're truly like interested in, like wanting to know more of. They're just kind of like they're kind of just given and fed all the information that they can kind of see, but they don't actually try to seek out anything else. So if I'm gonna give you some game from today that's gonna be different, uh, make sure you go ahead and tap in with that for sure. Justice, obedient, superior, and wholesome. H for wholesome. I don't know if that works, but we're gonna rock with it, man. We're gonna rock with it. So, like I said, if there's any other elements that you think are worth mentioning when it comes to today's topic, I want you to go and leave in the comments. But I'm gonna go and end this one off here very, very soon. So, like I said, if there's something that you think is worth mentioning, make sure to leave in the comments. Yeah, I'm gonna reiterate this point, fellas. You have the ability to change your future. You have the ability to make your vision clearer. You have the ability to make sure that blueprint that you're going off of is going to be something that must be edited and revised frequently. And fellas, you have no ceiling, man. Create it with no ceiling as well. And with that being said, you just gotta do what you gotta do, man. Do what you gotta do. Whatever it is, whatever you feel is right in doing, make sure you go ahead and do that for sure. Yeah, one thing I want to reiterate as well is I feel like not enough people they don't give enough credit to their past, right? They kind of like to just leave it in the past, but the past is who you are regardless, right? They created the person that is in front of you right now, right? I feel like a lot of people, like I mentioned earlier, they like to detach themselves from their hardships of the past, when in reality the past moments have shaped you to who you are today. Even though you might be a different person, but nonetheless the past experiences that you've had in the past obviously are are something that's going to influence the way that see you can kind of see the future almost. um and let's just say you're a person that tries to detach themselves from their past, even though it should be something that you should be able to detach yourself to an extent. At the same time, it's not something that is always something worthy of detaching from, if that makes any sense. Because at the end of the day, it created you. If you're happy with where you are, then you shouldn't have wished for things to be different, if that makes any sense. Yes, sir. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it, man. Like I said, this is the podcast. We do it twice a week, and we keep pushing from here, man. Yeah, appreciate it, man. Appreciate your support and your comments. If you're also watching on Twitch, I want you to go to let me know, just so I can see in the comments for sure. Make sure to leave me a follow. Like I said, I want to know your guys' take on the most interesting concept that I mentioned on today's podcast. I like to get you guys' input, so make sure you go ahead and say what's good. All right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, give me 1 second, fellas. I'm gonna throw in a different element. I'm gonna throw in a different element to this podcast because I do believe that this is also an element that I think is worth mentioning. Something that I mentioned on a previous podcast, of course, but I do believe that I don't think I necessarily need to make a separate podcast for this. I could just add it to the yeah, I would say yeah, this is gonna be an element that I think it's worth mentioning when it comes to today's topic. That's all I have to really say about that. So today's topic, another element of today's topic is going to be, we'll say, private victories. Private victories is going to be that topic, and I'm going to tie it back into being the marble, or rather the sculptor, right? Private victories. Private victories, if I can describe them to you, if you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, private victories are going to be the little things that you do that you make progress towards, right? You make progress towards these things, and this is also going to be an element where maybe most people don't actually see these certain things and certain levels of progress that you do make. I feel like early on in everybody's journey, you must create and stack a lot of your private victories. So, like I said, a lot of the work that people do not see, um, there's going to be there's going to be a lot of work that you put in that most people will not see. There's going to be a lot of time that you put there's going to be a lot of time and work that you put in yourself, like I said, that no, maybe you will never even get credit for. But with that being said, in order to have the inverse of of the private victory, you obviously are going to have the public victories. With the public victories, those are going to be victories that people can see. Maybe some materialistic thing that's a visual representation of progress or of prosperity or of recognition, right? There's going to be like, so for example, if I give you some examples of some public victories, maybe like I said, a nice car, or maybe it's a certain piece of clothing, or maybe it's um, I don't know, maybe it's yeah, I don't know. It could be a lot of different materialistic things, but instead of admiring people's public victories, of saying, oh yeah, he has a nice car, whatever would give him recognition, whatever would give him some type of signaling of importance, you must really focus in on what did it take in order to get that? What were the private victories that he needed to take in order to get that? And one thing I want to say about private victories is these are things that are not going to be the most flattering things to go ahead and do, right? And I feel like that's also something that is not said enough in the journey. Is there's going to be a lot of things that you do you don't get credit for, and you have to just live with that just for what it is, and understanding that the journey is still the journey at the end of the day. And I would say a lot of people are not willing to not get enough credit for their private victories, so therefore they give up. That's going to be an element of why people give up, is because they don't see them getting they don't see themselves getting enough credit for the wins that they take that no one sees. And I feel like that doesn't do and satisfy for the ego. And like I said, I feel like that's why some people quit when it comes to trying to work on themselves and being persistent. Um, so yeah, for sure, that's what I will say. For me, it's to be able to progress and be worked on like marble and the sculpture. Yeah, you have to be able to persevere and gain a love for learning. Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Right, that kind of goes hand in hand with the private victories, right? In the private victories, there's going to be sacrifices that you make. There's going to be things that you need to be willing to give up. There's going to be certain elements of yourself that are worth sacrificing, right? In order to get those public victories, or maybe it's taking time away from one element of your life that you think is worthy of pursuing, but at the same time, maybe you need to make sure that the main thing is the main thing, right? It goes in for a lot of different things, but ultimately what I want to say is this. In order to get public recognition, in order to get any type of validation from any person, you first need to start creating the wins that are going to be just for yourself. You need to make this very, very personal, right? You need to understand that you need to stack a lot of wins and a lot of yeah, I would say, yeah, just a lot of wins for yourself, a lot of patting yourself on the back, a lot of those certain activities that, like I said, people just don't see. You need to fall in love with that. Like you said, the love for learning. If you can fall in love with getting private victories and not getting the recognition, I feel like that's also going to be an element that needs to be mentioned for sure. And something that I would say I've gotten very, very good at that. I recognize that all the work that I put in is maybe not always going to be showed, but I can try my best to kind of show that. And I feel like I kind of do that with the podcast. And I feel like everybody needs to find their own specific way that they kind of go ahead and do that, where they can show themselves actually having the private victories, right? Appreciate it, appreciate it. Hey friend, I've been listening to you, and you just earned yourself a subscriber. Yes, I appreciate the support. I appreciate the support. Private victories are the most special than public ones. You got to be your biggest supporter, and even if no one knows about it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's gonna, like I said, you need to do that for yourself. That's gonna be an element of you needing to be selfish, right? You're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for the external validation of other people. Like I said, you make it very, very personal. Some people just don't do that, unfortunately. Oh. Yeah. So, like I said, one thing I want to mention as well, since we got a few people in here, If there's any specific topic that you think is worthy of me mentioning, or maybe you're a little bit curious and don't know enough of, and you think that I might have some insight in, I want you to go ahead and leave in the comments because I do take podcast requests. So certain things that maybe might interest you, that you think might interest me, that you think is worthy of me speaking of, I'll definitely take some recommendations for sure. Yeah, I would say the way that you structure your the way you can kind of receive your own private victories is gonna dictate whether you even have any public victories at all. I would say, yeah, I would say private victories are more special. I would definitely agree with that for sure. Challenges in life make challenge. Challenges in life make challenge. Overcome challenge to be meaning. Wait. Hold on. You gotta rewrite that. Hold on. That was not me. There's no way that's me. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, you gotta rewrite that one. You gotta rewrite that one. Hold on. Sorry. All right. Getting back to what I was saying. Private victories are going to be something where you go ahead and put your ego aside. You put your pride and ego aside to partake in certain work that no one will recognize. And you must be content if they never find out about the work that you put in, right? I feel like that's another element for sure. When it comes to your public victories, if you never get the recognition for the amount of time that you put in, you must be okay with that. You must be content with that never happening. And you must leave it up to your ability to go ahead and show that you put in the work or not, right? Like I said, there's going to be certain elements and certain ways that you can go ahead and do that. But for me personally, I would say the podcast is definitely going to be one of these things that I get to show some of the private victories. I get to explain some of the private victories that were a part of the journey. So like I said, for you personally, if there's any specific way that you can go ahead and express yourself to show that you've been putting in the work in yourself, right? I would say to go ahead and take advantage of that, whatever that is for you. Um, yeah, that's the way that I would describe. If you're gonna have a lot of private victories, if your ability to go ahead and show that without showing that is going to say a lot about your character. I'll say that. Showing it without showing it. Does that make any sense? Hopefully that makes sense, man. But I appreciate y'all for stopping by. Yeah, I would try to read that again. I can't read that again. I tried my best. But yeah, fellas, to reiterate anything for the podcast, you are the marble and the sculptor, right? What do you want the end result to look like? Make sure you go ahead and make your decisions based off of that. Be willing and able to sacrifice certain things that you need to go ahead and sacrifice in order to build the best and most beautiful sculpture that you possibly can. Understand that you have control of the future, and also you don't have control of the past, and that is okay. That your past and your past imperfections create the finished product, the eventual finished product. You cannot have one without the other. And yeah, one thing I want to reiterate with also being the marble and the sculptor is you must have a vision that you're constantly reminding yourself of throughout the entire journey. Let's just say you get bored. You get bored or unproductive when it comes to being the sculptor. You need to go ahead and remind yourself and revisit a certain side of yourself that's going to give you that passion, that's going to reignite the passion and remind you of what you need to be reminded of in order to go ahead and pursue what you need to go ahead and pursue. And also with that, like I said, make sure you're stacking your private victories, fellas. Private victories are going to be some of the most important things that you can go ahead and do for yourself. It is going to be somewhat of a selfish thing to do, but it is going to be an absolute necessary thing to go ahead and do. So make sure you're stacking your private victories, and eventually you're going to go ahead and stack your public victories. Now, I'm not a person that is too dependent on public victories, right? You're either going to see the progress or you're not going to see the progress. Like I said, that's gonna be up to me. It's gonna be up to me to go ahead and show you if I've been putting in work or not. Your present, hold on. Your present will be your past, and your future will be your present. Exactly. You're taking a call. Hey, I don't remember that one. I remember that one. Yes, you're indeed correct though. You're indeed correct. And Jaden tapped in, of course. Appreciate it. All right, I'm gonna go and end off here soon. Yeah, I pretty much said everything that I need to say. Like I said, if there's any last second comments, make sure to leave them in the comments. Like I had mentioned, if you're rewatching this and you have anything that you think is worth mentioning, I want you to go ahead and leave in the comments for sure. Also, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. Other than that, fellas, this was episode 128 of the Life of a Champ podcast, talking about being the marble and the sculptor, right? You said it in the podcast. I'm sure I did. Like I said, it sounds familiar. When mindset change, all the things outside change. When the mindset changes, yeah. Okay. I get you. Okay. You're right. I would say that is definitely going to be something that is true elements for sure. But yeah, that was the podcast for today. Like I said, I appreciate everyone for stopping by. I'll leave you guys off with the podcast motto. Fellas out here, man, we don't just work around here, man. We outwork. So make sure y'all working these motherfuckers because you know that I am. Come on now, you already know what time it is. Make sure y'all working these motherfuckers because somebody is out there and it better be you, right? A few things I want to mention as well. Next podcast is going to be on Tuesday. So if you were interested in today's podcast and got some value out of it, I'm going to be having another one on next Tuesday and Thursday. So tap in with that for sure. I'll be having a week off here soon. Let me double check. For y'all. Hold up, man. Actually, I lied. I'm only going to be having one. I could still do. That's going to be tough. I'm going to have two next week. But instead of doing it on Thursday, I'm going to do it on Wednesday. So it'll be a Tuesday, Wednesday podcast. Or I'm actually going to do Monday, Wednesday. Let's do that. So the 12th and the 14th are going to be my next 2 days for a podcast. So if you're interested in the podcast, make sure you go to tap in with that for sure. Other than that, y'all have a good night. And like I said, stay tuned for the next podcast for sure.